Equivalent statements. First of all, what does equivalent make you think of? What does it sound like? Noticing the beginning of the word equi, that should sound like equal. Remember, equal means same. And our symbol for equal, which looks like this. So these are statements that have the same truth value. If one of them is true, the other one is also true. If one of them is false, the other one is also false. Such as the converse and inverse, they are equivalent statements. Also, the conditional and the contrapositive, those are equivalent statements. That takes us to the law of the contrapositive. Do you remember how to do the contrapositive of a statement? Let's review that. Remember that if you start with the conditional statement being P arrow Q, the contrapositive is when we negate and flip the statement. So not Q, arrow, not P. Notice we put the Q first and then we negated both statements. So the law of the contrapositive uses that contrapositive. For example, you could be given P arrow Q, some statement, if P then Q. You might also be given the negation of the conclusion, not Q. So you're starting with the conclusion and negating it. What would be the conclusion, meaning what part of the contrapositive do we still have? So remember, to conclude an argument, we put the 3 dots that mean therefore. So notice we went P arrow Q. We started with not Q for the contrapositive, so we end with not P. So therefore, not P. Let's take a look at some examples with words. Use deductive reasoning, meaning using one of our laws of logic, to determine a valid conclusion to the following statements. Remember that valid sort of means true. It follows the laws of logic. If it is Monday, then tomorrow is Tuesday. Tomorrow is not Tuesday. Sometimes it's easier to figure this out by applying symbols. So it is Monday is the hypothesis. We could say that is the P. Tomorrow is Tuesday is the conclusion. So we could assign Q to that statement. The next line says tomorrow is not Tuesday. So that would be taking tomorrow is Tuesday and negating it. That's not Q. Notice that's following the pattern of the law of the contrapositive. We began with the conclusion Q and negated it. Therefore, the conclusion has to negate what was the hypothesis. So we say, therefore, negating the hypothesis, which was it is Monday, we would say it is not Monday. And logically, that makes sense. If tomorrow's not Tuesday, it can't be Monday. But ultimately, we're following the law of the contrapositive. Let's take a look at one more example. Determine whether the argument is valid or invalid. Explain your reasoning. If I study, then I'll pass my test. I didn't pass my test. Therefore, I didn't study. Again, it's often easier to apply symbols to the statements. So after the if will be our hypothesis. We'll assign P. Then I'll pass my test. That's the conclusion. We'll assign it Q. So far what we have is P arrow Q. I didn't pass my test. So that takes I pass my test and negates it. That is not Q. So our next line is not Q. So we're starting with the conclusion, but we're negating it. So Where do we correctly go after that? We negate the hypothesis. So it should say, therefore, not P. Does it say that? Let's see. Therefore, I didn't study. I study is P, so I didn't study is not P. And that matches what it's supposed to be using the law of the contrapositive. So this is valid because of the law of the contrapositive. And now you're ready to make logical arguments.